Welcome to Financial Confidence for High-Achieving Women, the go-to podcast for women of color entrepreneurs overwhelmed by their finances and ready to transform their money mindset, take control of their money, and build sustainable wealth. I'm your host, Taryn, better known as T-Money, certified financial coach and CEO of Money Honey LLC. I believe that abundance is your birthright and that good money management doesn't mean cutting out the joy from your life. Stick around to learn how you can build intentional money habits that align with your biggest lifestyle goals. Let's get into today's episode. Should I save or pay off debt first, or can I do both at the same time? This is a top question I'm asked all the time during speaking engagements and coaching sessions. Hey, y'all. Hey. Welcome to episode 4 of the Financial Confidence for High Achieving Women podcast. I'm your host, Taryn, better known as T-Money. And today we'll be talking about the age-old question, should you save or pay off debt first? And this one, I think, it just comes from a place of wanting to make sure you're doing the right thing, right? Typical high achiever thought process, which is totally okay. And this is also a topic where I feel like there's so much noise about what's right and what's wrong. And the way that I like to approach it with clients is we start to dive into each side of it first, right? So if you only focus on paying off debt, while it eventually gives you more money to save with, you're also at risk of going into debt again if another emergency, or even it doesn't even have to be an emergency. It could be an opportunity happens and is presented to you, right? You're at risk of not having the money available to be able to do those things. And so that's the one side, right? And then the other side of it is if you were to focus on saving first, most of the time also, let me say that when people come to me asking this question, when they're referring to saving, they're usually referring to an emergency fund. And they're, asking like, should I save for the emergency fund first or fill up the emergency fund? And if you're unfamiliar, most of the recommendations that are out there around that is having like 3 to 6 months of your necessary expenses saved. Now, of course, I have another method of figuring out how to fill your emergency fund. We'll get to that probably in another episode. But if you were to approach it from saving first, then you would be delaying the debt payoff, of course, but also the amount that you are going to be paying in interest goes up, right? So you're going to be paying more in interest over time when you delay paying off your debt. And then there's also, if it's a credit card, for example, that you are paying off, when you make the payments, even if it is the minimum payment, your monthly payment decreases just a little bit each month, right? Or it stays relatively the same. You don't get that benefit, of course, if you delay paying off your card. Now, of course, if you pay more than the minimum payment, that's when you receive the maximum benefit. So ideally, of course, you want to do that. And this is also, let me say, not the episode that we're going to talk about debt payoff strategies, because that can definitely use its own. But when we're approaching this question, we want to look at both of those sides. Right. So we're looking at both. Okay, if I just focus on the paying off debt, what does that mean for me? If I just focus on saving, what does that mean for me? Now, what I love to advocate for is doing both. You don't have to choose. You really could do both. And it's even in your benefit to do both of them at the same time. So I would say find a way to do both. Especially if you are dealing, with some high interest debt. And I've seen it go both ways. So, sometimes if you just focus on paying off the debt, then yeah, you are going to have more savings. But if you're already saving at the same time, you are able to just add on to the savings you already have. And then if you're somebody who's I love a sense of security when it comes to my money, then knowing that while you are taking care of any debt that you're paying off, you also have the savings in place to, handle anything that may come. That, just brings a big sense of relief for a lot of people. And so how do we do both, right? How do we start to make that a reality? And that's when we do get an opportunity to dive into some budgeting, right? And so you can look at your monthly budget, and maybe it's even just like the amount that you have available to pay off your debt, to also save, and start to figure out what is the amount that I feel comfortable with putting into savings. And a lot of times with those that I'm working with, especially if you're paying off high interest debt in particular, then it might not mean it's equal, right? So maybe you're paying like 500 towards the debt, and you're thinking, oh, do I also need to save $500 at the same time? Maybe it doesn't look like that. Maybe you're paying off the 500 towards the debt and then saving, $100. So then, you're still building up that savings, but it's not taking away from your main goal at that point, which might be to pay off the debt. So you're able to do both of them. And there's benefits to that. You are able to start to, have some more money, where maybe you might get to the point, and I have plenty of clients who have done this part as well, where they got to the point where their savings has reached a certain level and they only have maybe a couple $1,000s left to pay off for their debt. And they're like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just take some of my savings and just finish it. Right. And then now they're able to reallocate that money to another savings goal, or to start to increase their investments in all sorts of things. So you have both of those options available to you. And truthfully, y'all, the best part about building wealth, about accumulating more money, is having more options. And it's options to spend your money in a way that really aligns with you, and to reach the goals and do the things that you truly want to do. And so when we approach this question of, should I save first, or should I pay off debt first, or can I do both? Most things I would say let's do both. Now, I will say the biggest thing, right, is what matters to you. Sometimes I'm working with clients and there's just a very big emotional charge towards I need to get this paid off, or I need to have a particular amount of savings. And of course, we're going to work through the feelings and the emotions behind that. But until then, it's where can we start where we feel comfortable? And then we can always adjust the amounts over time. And so what that can look like I said, is taking just a little bit towards the savings. Maybe maybe the amount you're saving is higher than the amount that you're tossing towards the debt each month. But that's something that we can really work through to make sure it's a plan that feels good for you. Because the other thing that like I said, I really could talk about this all day, but the other thing that I am going to say around just focusing on paying off debt is that when we are putting so much energy towards that and putting everything off, again, it's starting to create those feelings around money where you're not having the positive experiences, and you could also be perpetuating the shame of it all if you feel any sort of shame and anxiety about the debt that you have. So when you're only focused on that and you feel like you can't really live your life or invest in other goals or save towards anything until you handle that particular thing, it's just adding more fuel to the criticism fire of oh, I shouldn't have made this purchase, or let me feel bad about my past financial decisions. When most of the time, when I'm working with somebody who has dealt with debt, and even with my own, as you've heard in the first episode, it was all going towards a good place. Most of the time it's money that is being used to elevate you in some way, whether it's through education or it's being used to, allow you to survive. For some people, that's how they've gotten into debt, to be able to survive something. Or it's like, an investment that you thought was going to pay off and it hasn't yet, or it didn't yet, like most of the time is going towards something that was ultimately intended for good. And so when we can acknowledge that and make the decision of like, okay, this is something that I have, but it's not something that has to control me. It's not something that has to stop me from feeling good about money or feeling good about my life, then you're able to handle it from a more neutral place and just kind of deal with it of like, this is a bill I have to pay right now. Yes, of course, when I have extra money, I'm gonna toss it towards that, and, make it happen or do a combination of both, even with that. Those things are available to you. And so it's really about what matters to you the most. So will doing one or the other bring you more of a sense of relief, or will doing both really do that? And most of the time, the folks who are asking me are usually asking from a place of like, I kind of want to do both, but I'm waiting for the permission if that's okay. And so, I had a client who recently, told me from a program that I did like a couple months back. And we talked about this question in particular there, right? And she ended up maxing out her IRA and putting $10,000 in the stock market. And that brought her so much peace to actually like move towards paying off the debt, just through what we talked about in that session. And what she appreciated most was the permission, right, to do both, to invest and pay down debt simultaneously, versus feeling like she had to do one or the other. By doing both of them, by paying off her debt as well as, investing, she was able to feel so much more stability. And that is the part that is important. This is where you get to start to make financial decisions that feel good. And that is what helps you to start building the confidence around your ability to, manage your money, to make the decisions that are going to help to grow your wealth and all of the things that come with it. And so, when faced with the question of should you pay off your debt first or save first or do a combination of both, my answer is always going to be both. You just get to find a way to do it. And with that, let's get into the action step for this episode. And so it's time to decide, how much are you going to put towards your savings each month? And for this, I want you to write like an actual amount, like once it's safe to do so, like if you're driving, be smart. But like, I want you to actually write down the amount that you're going to save each month. And then I want you to, on the other side of that, write the amount that you're allocating towards paying off your debt each month. Okay. And so you have both of those numbers. As I mentioned earlier, you want to consult your budget with that. So just look to make sure to see what makes the most sense for you. And, I encourage you to challenge yourself to do both of those things. And then once you have that, I want you to set the day that you are going to make those transfers or payments. Okay. So set the date each month. You can put it in your calendar. And then of course, if you want some extra credit, we'll say, then you would want to go and automate that. So automate the savings, automate the debt payment, and you are good to go. So we have more fun stuff coming your way on the Financial Confidence for High Achieving Women podcast. We have the money dates episode that I'm very excited about, that's coming up, as well as the language you use around money. So make sure that you are hanging with us to get that information. All right. To be able to build some amazing financial confidence. And of course, I gotta let you know that if you are, ready to dive into this on a deeper level, maybe you want to have some eyes on your budget first, or to kind of talk through what the best option would be for you, then I encourage you to book and organize your Money Honey session. It is a 90-minute coaching session. You'll walk away with a crystal clear financial plan, a budget you'll actually stick to, and actionable steps to start saving and investing faster. So we'll go through these things. We'll make a plan for you. We'll get your amounts if you feel like you need support around that. And you can head to the link in the show notes to book your spot for that. And I will catch you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Financial Confidence for High Achieving Women podcast. I hope the insights shared in this episode have inspired you to take one small action step toward a more empowered relationship with money. If you're ready to take control of your finances like the rich bitch you are, I invite you to book a 90-minute Organize Your Money Honey intensive with me. You'll walk away with a crystal clear financial plan, a budget you'll actually stick to, and actionable steps to start saving and investing faster. Head to the link in the show notes to book your spot. I'm so grateful to be part of your financial journey, and I can't wait to see all the incredible moves you'll make. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.